I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. This is A World Gone Mad. I'm so damn pissed. I'm so damn frustrated. And it's going to be one of those episodes. So here we go. What the hell is happening in our country right now? Trump destroying everything in sight on an hourly basis. Republican leadership, that word is a joke. Republican leadership bending over and taking it from Donald deep. The Senate and now the Congress have voted about the War Powers Act and giving their answer to whether Trump has the power to declare war. More specifically, whether Donald can continue with his blatant attack on Iran. Drum roll, please. And the answer from the Senate and the Congress is, sure, Donald, do whatever the fuck you want to do to Iran. Grind them into the dirt because why not? And you know what appalls me the most with the vote from Congress? Have you read what some of the answers were from the men and women in the Congressional House? Trump and his team didn't fully explain what the Iran war endgame is. Trump and his team didn't list any clear objectives for this war that Trump started. No exit strategy, no objectives, zero understanding about this illegal war. Therefore, sure, fucking do what you want to do in Iran. Sure, go ahead, Donald, we vote for it. Because we, as the Republican leadership, hereby abdicate full power of our duties to Donald Trump, the all-powerful, all-knowing King of the universe. These actions, these votes from the Senate and the Congress are despicable, destructive, and just plain capitulation to Donald. I want to know the details of the bank accounts of all the Republican senators, of all the Republican congressmen and women. Because if you're not corrupt, then you're scared that Trump has dark secrets on each and every one of you that he has threatened to release. If it's not any of those two reasons, then why do you keep propping up this wannabe king? Then all I can conclude is that the Republican leadership are the most anti-American people in the history of America. Do your frigging jobs. Stand up for your country. Stop this fealty to Trump. We all know what Trump is. A waste, an egotistical, insecure guy who craves minute-by-minute attention. Let's all of us put the pressure on the people who deserve the pressure. Republicans in the Senate and in the Congress. These are the ones who are hurting this country. These are the ones who do not care about us. These are the misfits and morons who need to be held accountable. And yes, I'm sure a lot of you have been thinking during this rant, Jeff, we know this. What you're saying is repetitive, Jeff. It's a waste of time. So I'll answer back if anybody's thinking this. So, it needs to be said over and over hundreds of times. We need to scream it until it gets through. I can't speak for any of you. So if you think I'm wasting my time, you're wrong. If you think I'm right, then great. But I wouldn't know that unless you let me know. Republicans who support Trump, whether they are family members or former friends, need to wake the hell up and stand up. Show your support for America, not Trump. Show your family you care. Don't make excuses for this daily destruction of what America is supposed to stand for. I'm sure a lot of the listeners tuned out at the start of this episode. Shame on you if you did. For those that stayed through my pissed off rant, then I thank you. Either way, I wouldn't know without your feedback. wolfpacktalks@gmail.com. Would be nice to hear from a lot of you, but honestly, I won't hold my breath. Let me switch to Kristi Noem, or as my fellow friend and podcaster Bill stated, Kristi No More Noem was fired. And the MAGA supporters can spin it any way they want to. But Kristi, let's treat Americans like I treated my dog by shooting them if they don't do what I say, Noem, was fired. And here's an outrageous comment made by some Trump MAGA supporters I came across. This was on the internet. She wasn't fired. She was promoted. Seriously? Promoted? How stupid are these MAGA people? Noam was downgraded to a different position, a made-up position. Special envoy to the Shield of America, or nonsense words to that effect. Sounds like a new fighting team in the Marvel comic book universe. And replacing her, Mark Wayne Mullen. He's a Republican U.S. Senator from Oklahoma. This is the man who has no experience or any qualifications whatsoever for the Homeland Security position. This is the man who said during an interview from reporters, "We're in a war." And then 10 seconds later he said, "It's not a war." And when he was called out on that by reporters, he said, "I never said that," even though he just said that 10 seconds ago in the interview by reporters. My favorite part of all of this, I say that sarcastically, listeners, is that one of the journalistic pundits, I don't recall who at this moment, but she stated it doesn't really matter who's put in that position. And her reasoning is if Trump's policy doesn't change, if Trump increases deportation efforts the way he wants and continues separating children from their parents and shooting innocent Americans in the street, then it really doesn't matter who he posts in the Homeland Security position. And I have to agree with what that journalist said, that changing faces for the Secretary of Homeland Security doesn't move the needle. If Trump doesn't adjust his policy, if he doesn't understand that American lives are sacred, if Donald doesn't believe that people have a right to stay in America if they were born here, and I'm talking about the children of the immigrants here, then appointing Senator Mark Wayne Mullen to Homeland Security is just another clown yanked from the clown car of the Donald Trump circus. A different clown with a different face and makeup, but still does the same clown dance that Trump wants. My God, all of us real Americans paid a ticket price, a ridiculous price to watch this circus. And this freaking circus never ends. The popcorn is stale, the hot dogs are burnt, the candied apples are hard as rocks, and yet the circus doesn't end. Step up one and all and see the freak show. A major escalation may now be unfolding in the conflict involving Iran, and it has the potential to change the strategic balance of this war. Reports from U.S. officials say Russia is now providing intelligence to Iran that could help them target American forces in the Middle East. That intelligence reportedly includes the locations of U.S. warships, aircraft, and other military assets operating in the region. That development alone should get everyone's attention. Up until now, this war has largely been framed as the United States and Israel confronting Iran and its proxies. That's already dangerous enough. But when another nuclear-armed power starts feeding targeting information into the fight, you're no longer looking at a regional clash. You're looking at the early stages of great power involvement in a regional war. And the reason that matters is simple. Russia has satellites, electronic surveillance, and intelligence capabilities that Iran simply doesn't have at the same level. Analysts say that kind of support could dramatically improve Iran's ability to track U.S. forces and strike more accurately. So if Iranian drones or missiles suddenly start hitting closer to American bases, ships, or radar installations, it may not just be Iranian capability, it could be Russian intelligence guiding the shot. Now here's the geopolitical problem. When one adversary starts helping another attack American assets, it changes the strategic math. This becomes indirect participation in the war. U.S. officials themselves say would mark the first sign that another major U.S. rival's joining the conflict, even if it's behind the scenes. That's how conflicts expand. World wars don't usually begin with one big announcement. They grow step by step. One country strikes, another country provides weapons, another country provides intelligence. Suddenly you've got multiple powers entangled in the same battlefield. And the Middle East is already one of the most crowded military environments on the planet. American bases, Iranian proxies, Israeli forces, Gulf states, NATO partners, now potentially Russian intelligence feeding the targeting pipeline against the U.S. You could see where this could go. More accurate Iranian strikes could mean more American casualties, and that in turn would almost certainly trigger stronger U.S. retaliation. Then Russia has to decide whether it doubles down or backs off. And every step up that ladder raises the risk of something far bigger than what started this conflict. This is exactly why intelligence involvement matters so much. Missile and drones get the headlines, but information's what decides where those weapons land. And if Russia now helping Iran aim at American forces, then this war just moved on to a much more dangerous chessboard. Now here's another layer people aren't talking about enough. What this means for the war in Ukraine. That's right, Russia helping Iran right now fits into a much larger pattern that's been developing for years. Moscow and Tehran have been building a military partnership for a long time. Iran supplied Russia with Shahed attack drones that Russia's been using against Ukrainian cities. And the two countries have even cooperated on drone production. So when you see Russia now turning around and helping Iran in a conflict involving the United States, it's not some random move. It's the same strategic partnership, just showing up in a different battlefield. And there's another consequence that could be even bigger. When a new war breaks out in the Middle East, Western attention and military resources get pulled away from Ukraine. Analysts are already warning that air defense systems, weapon shipments, and political focus could shift toward the Iran conflict instead of Kiev. That's exactly the kind of strategic distraction Russia benefits from. If Washington and its allies suddenly have to defend bases, ships, and partners across the Middle East, that means fewer resources, fewer headlines, and less political pressure focused on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In other words, Moscow could end up with two advantages at the same time. First, it gets to help a partner like Iran challenge the United States in another region. Second, the world's attention shifts away from the battlefield in Ukraine. And geopolitically, that's a very old strategy. Major powers often try to stretch their adversaries across multiple theaters. The more places your opponent has to defend, the harder it becomes to concentrate power in any one war. Now, I'm not saying Russia suddenly wants a direct war with the United States, but if Moscow believes this conflict ties down American forces and divides Western attention, it absolutely changes the strategic environment of the Ukraine war. Because while Washington is dealing with missiles in the Persian Gulf and drones over the Middle East, the fighting in eastern Ukraine doesn't stop for a second. And if Russia's helping Iran aim at American forces while still fighting Ukraine at the same time, what you're seeing isn't two separate conflicts anymore. You're seeing a global rivalry playing out across multiple battlefields at once. All right, let me talk about the economy for a second, because the numbers coming out right now look less like a healthy economy and more like the opening scene of a disaster movie where the scientist says, "We should probably evacuate the city." The new jobs report just came out, and it shows 92,000 jobs lost. Lost. Not slower growth, not cooling, lost. 92,000 people who are getting a paycheck are now getting an email that probably begins with the words, due to current economic conditions. That's not a rounding error. That's a warning sign. Companies don't start cutting workers when things are booming. They cut workers when the executives are looking at spreadsheets and quietly saying, we'd better brace for impact. And right when that's happening, gas prices decide to start climbing again because, of course, they are. The Middle East is turning into a geopolitical bonfire, and oil traders did exactly what oil traders always do when things get unstable. They pushed prices up. And when oil prices go up, the entire economy gets slapped in the face. Every truck delivering food costs more. Every flight moving cargo costs more. Every store moving products across the country costs more. Which means the final bill lands exactly where it always lands. On you, me, all of us. Groceries go up. Travel goes up. Shipping goes up. Suddenly, the same $100 that used to buy a week of groceries now buys 3 items and a receipt long enough to use as a scarf. Meanwhile, the stock market is doing its own impression of a roller coaster that forgot to install the brakes. This is now the second straight day the market has dropped as investors look at the same 3 flashing warning lights. Jobs falling, energy prices rising, and a global situation that looks about as stable as a shopping cart with 3 wheels. Wall Street hates uncertainty. It hates it so much that the second traders smell instability, they don't calmly discuss it over coffee. They run for the exits like someone just yelled fire in the building. So now we've got job losses hitting the economy, gas prices heading north again, and the stock market sliding for the second straight day. That combination doesn't exactly scream economic confidence. Because when companies start laying people off, when investors start dumping stocks, and when everyday costs start rising at the same time, the economy doesn't just shrug and say no problem. It starts wobbling. And Americans already feel it. You see it at the gas pump. You see it at the grocery store, and even worse, you see it when you check your retirement account and immediately decide maybe today is not the day to look at that. So the scoreboard right now is pretty simple. 92,000 jobs lost. Gas prices rising again. The stock market dropping for the second straight day. That's the economy flashing a warning sign that something underneath it is starting to break. This is a clusterfuck. And the continuing, never-ending circus caused by the ringleader himself, Donald Trump. So now we're hearing talk that Cuba is next. Next for what exactly? A military operation? A regime change? A geopolitical reality show episode? Because every time Donald Trump starts talking about another country being next, the rest of the world hears something very different. They hear the United States warming up the old playbook again. Big talk, big promises, and a whole lot of uncertainty about what the plan actually is. Cuba has been sitting 90 miles off the coast of Florida for more than 60 years as a political football. Every administration said it's going to handle the situation better than the last one. Every election cycle, Cuba suddenly becomes urgent again. And yet somehow the island is still there. The policy is still tangled. And the results are, well, exactly what we've had for decades. So when Donald Trump says, Cuba is next, people should probably ask a very basic question. What exactly is the plan here, Donald? Because threatening the next country on the list is easy. Actually solving 60 years of foreign policy gridlock, that's the part nobody ever seems to explain. Hey, listeners, you've heard the phrase before, walk softly and carry a big stick. So Donald wants to attack Cuba next? Seriously? Talk strongly and carry a small dick. And finally, Today, the country paused to honor a man whose voice echoed through some of the most important chapters of modern American history, Jesse Jackson. For more than half a century, Jackson stood at the crossroads of activism, politics, and moral persuasion. From marching alongside Martin Luther King to building the Rainbow Coalition and running historic presidential campaigns, Jackson pushed the idea that American democracy had to expand, not just for some people, but for everyone. And today, that legacy is drawing people from every corner of public life. Civil rights leaders, clergy, longtime allies, and political figures have gathered to honor him. Several former presidents are attending, or rather attended, the funeral services today to pay their respects, recognizing the role Jackson played in shaping modern American politics. The notable absence, of course, is Donald Trump, who didn't attend. Because whether you agree with him or not, one thing was undeniable. Jesse Jackson knew how to move the national conversation. He believed politics could be a moral force. He believed the voices of ordinary people mattered. And he spent decades challenging America to live up to its own promises. Moments like today remind us that movements are built by people willing to stand up, speak loudly, and refuse to accept the limits placed in front of them. Jesse Jackson did that for a lifetime. And that's why today so many people came together, not just to mourn the man, but to recognize the impact of the voice he carried into history. Wolfpack listeners, should I bother even telling you this? If you have thoughts about anything in this episode or anything else, you can email me. Doubt you'll use the email, but it would be nice if you did. wolfpacktalks@gmail.com. I'll be back again Monday. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. This is A World Gone Mad. Wolfpack listeners, at a time when truth is getting buried under lies, too many of the wrong voices are telling you what to think. It's time to take a stand. Be skeptical, question everything. Don't lose hope. And most of all, stay alert.